Ugh, don't let people make you feel bad for being an 8.
Get out what you're putting in. All your hopes and efforts are all in vain. Who will pick you up when you've lost everything? Does it all become for granted with a wedding ring? Oh, there must be more. There must be another way. There must be conscience. Different things in different ways. There must be love. There must be a reason. And a little bit of faith has got to come my way.
Hello, I am here to present to you Enneagram number 8. First of all, I highly encourage you to check out the video that I made about the purpose, the motivation, and the way that we can use the Enneagram as a tool rather than looking at the Enneagram as a lifeline or the source for everything. So I will have a link down in the description below for you to check that out. I encourage you highly, if you have not checked that out, to check it out so that you can understand the project and my motivation behind it. In this episode, I got to interview 5 people that identify as Enneagram number 8. And this was an episode that I very highly enjoyed because there were so many different people that do identify as number 8, but they're just completely different in sometimes the way that they think, the way they're motivated, and just their life in general. And it was very fascinating to me. Some people that I work with, some people that I don't know at all, or like friends of a friend. But it was just an amazing opportunity to hear people's life and their faith story. So I hope that this episode encourages you, inspires you in your faith, points you back to Christ, and especially that it reminds you you are not alone. And the things that you go through and the way that you think and the way that you feel, that God is always with you, and that there are so many people that are going through the same things that you are going through. So, without further ado, I present to you Enneagram number 8.
Talk, this preview is going to be the essential message that this number received often as a child, and it was a wounding message, or a message that told them they're not enough, they're not worthy, it's not okay. And then I will also give you the essential good message that they need to hear. The thing that their hearts are longing to hear. For 8s, it's not okay to be vulnerable. It's not okay to be weak. And the thing you're longing to hear is that you will not be betrayed. They are forces of nature. They are beautiful people, passionate and powerful. When they are healthy, they are the ones who are like tearing down systems of oppression. Like, they're the ones who have the energy for that. Not all the numbers do. They really are justice oriented. They're the people who stand up to the bullies on the playground. So it's just like really wonderful, and really great. And when you have 8s on the team, again, they are known as, like, they're part of the aggressive team. So they are go-getters, getting things done. So they're really kind of charging forward. And we need that in a balanced team for sure. They're very high achieving. They're very successful people. They're real go-getters. People are attracted to 8s because of those reasons, and then sometimes can get burned by 8s. They get a lot of, they're high energy people. So they get a lot of energy by engaging and debating and discussing and all of these things. And they can be exhausting for other numbers, but they are functioning in the way that gives them energy. Or like, I get energy by having discussions and being in conflict with people. They do not feel the pain of conflict like other people feel the pain of conflict. It's dispassionate. They don't hate you. They just disagree with you. And it's like not a big deal. 8s start getting into trouble because they like conflict. And sometimes it's like, so I had a student who I thought hated me because every word out of my mouth he would challenge all the time. And it was exhausting. I mean, it was fine, but it always felt like we were butting heads. And by the end of the semester, he wrote this amazing letter about how much he appreciated my class and he learned so much. And I was like, what?
I thought you hated
You
it.
learned things from me? I thought you hated everything I said because you were always like, well, what about this or what about that? Oh, just coming at me all the time. And so I was talking to an 8 friend and they're like, yeah, that's how we show you that we care. It's a way of engaging. My youngest sister, she thinks she's an 8, and she really does use her energy for good. If she sees someone who is quiet or vulnerable or on the outside, she uses her gregarious, laughing energy to bring that person into the room. If someone is being rude, she tells them they're being rude, has no problem with it, knock it off. And there's something refreshing about that in a world that moves in all these indirect ways. It's like kind of cut through the noise, if that makes sense. They're just like, knock it off. This is ridiculous. I think the issue with 8s is that their energy can be harmful if they're not aware or balanced. Sometimes it doesn't matter that you didn't mean to hurt someone. You did hurt them. Sometimes they're kind of famous for saying, like, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. And we're like, that's not really an apology. Because it's putting that on the other person. They function in the world in pursuit of control, power. They want to protect themselves. And the thing that breaks my heart about 8s is they feel so vulnerable. Inside that big shell, that big energy, they're on the offense. is a very tender heart, a very intuitive mind, someone who is aware of what's going on, someone who feels so vulnerable that they have to make the first move to control the situation. Walking into the room and knowing, if I don't control the temperature of the room, someone else will, and I might get hurt by it. And so they kind of make the first move. And it is in a self-protective, or it can be in a self-protective way, but they want to make sure they're the top of the food chain so that no one is controlling them. And then people can operate in whatever way they want, but the 8 feels safe because it has the upper hand, and it will battle you or confront you to get the upper hand. They don't carry grudges. They can really move through the world in an aggressive way that leaves a wake, but they're not like carrying the burden in their heart. They worry about hurting people too, but they're not upset. Like if they have a disagreement with someone, it doesn't get to the essence of that person. They don't hate that person. They're just disagreeing with you. They have those flare-ups, but then they can go get a beer with you afterwards. Like they can have the explosion, but again, it doesn't stick to them. They feel misunderstood. They're not big Minos. They're not trying to stomp all over people.
Right.
But people are vulnerable in different ways, and they feel and react to different people in different ways. So 8s have to kind of learn that. But I love 8s. I think of them as the very kind bull in a china shop. It's just hard. And the practice again for an 8 is that energy is kind of outwardly focused. And it is that taking time to address the vulnerable soul within the mechanism that is loud and strong and powerful, and to not see that as weakness and something to cover up and hide, but to access and understand your vulnerability and lead with that where appropriate, and reveal that and share that with people that you're close to, I think is a way for them to really create strong relationships with people.
My name is Sherry Smith. I live in Cincinnati. I work at Grace Lutheran Church as the office manager and the ministry coordinator.
All right. Well, my name is Celine Newman. I am a program director at Camp Luther Haven in Albion, Indiana. Grew up in New Mexico, and so found myself transplanted here.
Okay, well, my name is Jake Dobrins. I'm from Oklahoma City. I'm a minister. I am a middle school teacher and the president of Theophany Media, which is a Christian entertainment education company.
Okay, so my name is Billy Jouse, and I'm going to forget all your questions. I'm so excited to talk to you. And I am from is the question that I'm like, where am I from? Grew up in North Carolina, married a guy that was in professional baseball. He was a coach, and we've lived in 15 different towns and cities around the U.S., Dominican Republic, and Venezuela. Our home that we actually own and live in sometimes is in Naples, Florida. But right now I am sitting in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, as my husband is managing a baseball team here.
Okay, my name is Matthew Park. I'm from Illinois, and I'm currently living in Arizona doing some conservation work in the Tucson area.
My number is 8.
And I am a number 8.
And I am an Enneagram 8.
And then my number, I'm an 8.
Oh yeah, and I'm a number 8.
So based on the test, your deadly sin is lust. Do you think that you would agree with that? And if so, how do you deal with that?
No.
I don't think so. Okay.
No.
Fair.
That's a curious one. I don't know if I had to choose this. That wouldn't have been the first one to come to mind. I could see how that could relate to me, somebody who feels strongly and who wants things. Occasional temptation for me, definitely.
Yeah, so when I first read that and came across it, lust obviously gets equated with sex right away, and this idea of the sexual realm. Through studying that and reading and understanding more, lust really is kind of defined as this desire for more. And I would say when I look at it that way, absolutely.
I would agree. I've heard it before, but honestly, I probably put it out of my mind because I don't like thinking about negative things, because I have a tendency to go down a negative rabbit trail. It can fall to comparison. It can fall to overindulgence of negative thoughts, overindulgence, the work part of it. Really, I can overdo things. I guess that's the way I'm thinking of it. I overdo things at times.
Kind of I don't know, like social stimulation maybe. I don't know if that's what you're really talking about, but for things to be pretty like, upbeat, like I mean, in that context, I definitely hate like just sitting still by myself. I usually feel like I have to be doing something. And I do think that can be a little bit detrimental, like not taking a lot of time to like really sit and like be still and all that stuff.
When I'm up late and having fun time with my friends, like I'm usually the last one to go to sleep because I want more of it. Like let's keep going.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's times if I love a dessert, I want more dessert. If I'm enjoying it, like this desire to have more and keep going and keep wanting. I often find when I see another 8, it's just like I get excited because I'm like, I know you're going to run at the same pace I am because we're going to keep pushing. It isn't like, it's not necessarily extrovertedness or hyperness, it's a push. Because I'm an introvert and most people would see me, they would say, she's really calm. And I'm just like, yeah, but I will keep pushing. I go on a run and I'm like, I feel good. And then I've run like 7 to 13 miles. And it's
Wow.
just, you shouldn't do that to yourself. But I think that speaks to that aspect of the lust of like, just keep going, keep doing
But
it.
in general, it's always been a kind of a go. Fill my life with accomplishments. That's where I always like to be in charge of any given situation. Why am I doing that? Well, I don't care what other people think. That's not my motivation at all. It's for me. I want that for me to build security and control and that kind of thing, to do something like that. So yeah, lust for whatever that fills my time, helps me out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I do overwork, and it's not because I want to make a name for myself but I find a lot of value in doing. And I'm not one to sit idle for long. I'm not one to sit back. If I volunteer to do something at my kid's school, I do it 110%. In overdoing, I can also step on a lot of toes because I want to do more and I want to get things done. And it's not that I want to do it better than anyone. It's just I want to do.
I don't know. At that point, I think the way to deal with that is just one thing that I do like to do is I like to drive around a lot, like listen to maybe like some instrumental music, like either classical music or like movie scores or something like that. It helps me like think a lot more. It helps me be still a lot more inside. I guess it's like enough stimulation where I'm not like going crazy, but it's also not so distracting. So I feel like I can still kind of sit there and think a lot, and not also be like craving that sort of intensity, I guess.
And just to say this is enough, that's enough, it's okay. Just even going to bed sometimes can be hard, and I'll just stay up, and just like, Celine, you've done enough today. Like that's okay. You can go to bed. Or when I'm with my friends and I want to spend more time with them, and just saying like, it's okay, it's enough. Like the time we've spent together is enough, and that's an okay thing.
It takes self-discipline. And for me, I think rules help a lot. Even though I am generally pretty disciplined, I can break my own rules, but it needs to be a heart change. Why do you want to do this? You have to have that come to Jesus moment where you're saying, I'm doing this because it is good. It is good for me. It is good for those around me. It's just good.
Lust on the sense of overdoing, overacting, over. I think it gives me a balance of understanding that is heading to a dangerous place. And that would be something that I'd try to be more aware of so that I didn't head down that path. If it's, over talking, over drinking, over excitement, over too many words. One of my favorite words is loquacious because it so explains who I am.
Yeah.
We all have weaknesses, and we all have a place that the enemy's trying to take us to, a place of destruction, right, away from God. And if we're allowing our interactions or our actions or our personalities to take us farther away from God, then that's something we need to be responsible for, being aware of what is happening and taking more control. Here it goes into the 8 again, more control of it. But, we have to have, that's, to me, it's not being a control freak, it's being responsible. And that would be that boundary that I'd have to keep a check on to make sure I didn't go in that direction.
So every number has like a basic fear and a basic desire, that they say. And the basic fear for 8s, based on research that I have done, is being controlled, and basic desire is self-protection. Does this sound familiar? And if so, why do you think that is?
I really don't. I don't like it when people pick me up. I don't like it from just that basic desire of like, I'm not in control of myself. I don't like when I personally feel out of control. I don't like it if people see me that way. So for a long time, showing my emotions, I just felt out of control. There was a season where people called me stone faced because they're just like, you just never show emotions. That's not healthy. You need to be able to let people see a little bit of the chaos that happens within all of us. If I feel like somebody is controlling, I will kick back on that. And if I can't control them in return, then I will run away from that in some form. I've also noticed that being predictable is really hard for me at times. A crazy example of this was, as I said, I run retreats as part of my job. And so I make the schedule and I'm in charge of keeping the schedule. And most people say that seems like plenty of control. But for me, I realized that I often didn't stick to the schedule because I felt like the schedule was controlling me. If I kicked this off the schedule, then I ultimately was in control because then people would have to come to me and I knew what was happening and stuff like that. And you know what? I don't like lists because I feel like they control me. And they just looked at me and they're like, what? Like, you're the one making the list.
Yeah.
No, but then I do what I like, whatever I write down, I want to do absolutely what's not on that list. Stories like that came to mind and I was just like, yeah. I can see that. If I notice, I feel like somebody is taking control and I don't trust that person, it's going to be a really hard thing for me to listen or to let them have control at that point. Are they good? Are they healthy? Are they safe? Because if that's okay, then with the control I believe I have, I'm going to let them have control. But if I don't think they're the person that should be in charge, then I will probably try to take over control to keep people safe, to keep myself safe, to keep those around me safe. Again, if you're a healthy 8, that can be a good thing. If you're an unhealthy 8, then you're just always trying to take over things and people get and they don't like you, they get in fights, they feel like you're always pushing and trying to push them out of the way. I think that's a very important thing for us to understand as 8s, to use well, because it's part of who we are, but we have to be very careful with that aspect of ourselves.
I don't know that it's so much a fear of being controlled. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a fear, but I do like to be the one in control. Not necessarily just me, but for my family and the people that I'm closest to, I feel very, very protective of.
The triads are talking about it's the heart, the head, and the gut, or the body triad. And according to the book, The Road Back to You, the people in the gut triad are driven by anger and ask the question, what is wrong here? They live life by instincts and gut. They are honest and direct. And all of the numbers kind of do something with the anger, and the 8 externalizes this anger. What in your life can attribute to being in this triad, kind of based on what you know and what I had just said?
Oh gosh. Another reason I'm from North Carolina and I'm the baby of 8 and we grew up on a farm. There's a lot of anger and yelling anyway. But I think more so it goes back for me just about injustice. Like when I see something wrong, I want it right and I want it right now. I don't like people being pushed to the outside for whatever reason it may be. I don't like people being treated wrong. I don't like unfair treatment. I don't like racism. I don't like sexism. I don't like, all of those things can make my blood boil. That's where that gut part plays a huge part, because it makes me understand what drives the anger part. And I'm not an angry person. I'm a pretty cool, chill person most of the time. I just have a big personality, but don't rub me wrong when it comes to those things, because I will fight for it. There's a lot of positivity to that if you balance it well with love and with godly actions. You can get some stuff done. You can help children in poverty. You can help the homeless. You can help others. You can love people that feel unlovable. I tend to be drawn to the people that are being mistreated, and then I end up mistreating the people that are mistreating them. Having that gut instinct and that bit of anger that drives you is a good thing. Being able to use it for good, not just for my good, but you do have to balance it in being godly, because Jesus wasn't a wimp. He didn't come to earth and be like, oh, I'm just here. I'm
Right.
chill. I'm just God on earth doing godly things. No, he came and he changed some stuff, and he had arguments with people, and he had, and honey, I ain't comparing myself to Jesus, but that's the kind of righteous anger I want to have.
Yeah.
I want to have that righteous anger that goes, this is wrong, and we're going to see how we can make it right. Right.
Me in high school, I was very passionate about my faith and the particulars of my faith. I had the correct interpretation of things. I guess I was kind of angry, especially this kind of self-righteous anger. Everybody else apparently is too dumb to not see the same truth as me. What's going on here? And I would, debate people, and that was kind of my thing. And I was known for those views, known more for what I stood against than what I stood for, especially was an issue. And I had to change over time. In college, I also recognized my emotions and said, actually, they're not bad. We got to do something with this. I'm already using it in this passion. Let's stop for a second and examine that, use them more healthily. What was the difficulty when you're so direct that it can take people by surprise? I know when I first started dating my now wife, that was a big adjustment. She came from a family where, you never talked about feelings, issues, nothing. And then for me, it was, we have a problem. Let me tell you, here's the problem. Now let's solve it. We got to solve this. I have hopefully learned tact and wisdom in how I approach, trying to help myself be able to talk better, to be able to express those ideas I'm passionate about better with Jesus in the mix.
So in what, like, a number goes to another number in health and another number in stress.
Right.
And so it doesn't mean that obviously you become that other number. It's just you have different characteristics, the good characteristics of one number when you're healthy and not when you're unhealthy. So your number when you're healthy or confident goes to the positive sides of the 2. And when they're stressed or unhealthy, goes to the negative side of the 5. Obviously, you can agree to disagree with what I say. But with the 5 is known as the investigator. And their deadly sin is avarice or greed. So sometimes 5s can be very cautious of how they use their time and their energy, because they think that they'll lose it, and so they kind of keep to themselves in a way. Sometimes they can be shut off. They can be independent and not emotional, because they don't really want to deal with other people as much. And they can get into that isolated kind of way of thinking and only in their mind, and not as engaging with other people or the world, because they want to be so much in their mind and they want to keep all their energy to themselves because they don't want to lose it. And that's kind of where like the avarice comes in. Do you think that when you're on unhealthy state, you think that that you can relate with that in a way?
Maybe a little bit. Like if things get really bad, or if I feel like maybe I can feel like I really want to just like ignore other people and like try and figure things out for myself and do things my own way. In general, I've found that that's just a really stressful thing for me to try and do things myself or hide things from other people. So yeah, I think I do think I could see it happening. I've seen that happen.
I'm an extrovert, so I love being around people. But there are times where I don't like people. I can't take it anymore. I don't want to waste my time. And it's more of a protection than it is that I don't like people. I love people. But I do in my mind at times go, oh, I don't like people. I can't be around people right now. Removing myself from situations, backing off of friendships, whatever it may be, to try to find a healthier balance. That is that shut down to move to a healthier place in my mind. So
Cool.
Yeah.
And so then as we move into the healthy side of the two is known as the helper. Out of all the numbers on the Enneagram, the 2 is like the most in tune with how other people feel, because they're always thinking about others in a way of like, how can I help? What can I do to fix it?
Right.
Sort of, they really truly do care about other people, and their motivation is to help people and to make things better and to bring people out of problems. So do you think that when you're in a healthy place that you can relate to the positive sides of the 2?
Yeah, and on the other side, I think, I am pretty inclined just to talk to other people and try and connect with other people. Yeah, and just kind of build that network of friendship and support, that community aspect of things. I think that's something that I really like and strive for. Really get a lot out of being someone that can bring people together and create that bond between.
Absolutely. I love being a helper. Then when you are trying to help people that don't want help, that's when you go, I don't like people.
Yeah.
One night, my husband and I were out to dinner and we walk into a parking lot, and it's in a city, and we walk in a parking lot and this guy is manhandling this woman. They had had too much to drink. You could tell it. And so me, being the helper, goes over to help the lady and to get the guy to calm down. And I used to be a nurse, so helping is like my thing.
Yeah.
And so I run over to her and we get them separated. My husband's like, what are you doing? Like, what? That's, not that he approved of it at all, but I was putting myself at risk for this girl. 15 minutes later, this guy and girl that we just saw beating each other up in the parking lot walk into the bar hand in hand, kissing all over each other. And I literally started getting up and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Does she not know what we,
Yeah.
And my husband's like, calm down. I'm like, she's ridiculous. I can't believe she's as dumb as she is, And it went from that me wanting to step into a fist for her to me thinking she's a complete idiot, It's like, healthy to unhealthy really fast when it doesn't go the way that you think it should. And I think that, that's why I tend to work with underprivileged kids in poverty. They have no one to advocate for them a lot of times, and who is going to help them or their families. And if I don't step in to help, I'm not being obedient to who Christ has called me to be. And has given me this personality to be. It's a duty for me. It's not even a thought. It's not for my recognition at all. It's all about how can I help the Lord transform the lives of others.
So now we're kind of moving into the more faith-based Christian questions. I'm bringing in Bible characters for each of the numbers. Obviously, we don't know if these people are those numbers. We can't type Bible characters because they're long gone and they're dead. And some of the people in the Bible show different characteristics, some characteristics of each number. And the two characters I brought in for the 8 are Samson and John the Baptist. You can agree or disagree with this, but Samson, we know Samson is he's very strong. Sometimes his anger got out of control and he killed like a big army with a jawbone and everything. But at the end, he was stripped of that strength. Maybe it was because of protection, maybe because he just was in love with Delilah, where that's probably what it was too. But at the end, God still used him in his life. And then with John the Baptist, he was paving the way for Jesus to come, and he wasn't afraid of telling people off. He calls them like a brood of vipers, because he knew what his mission was and he knew what God wanted him to do, and he kept baptizing and doing the mission that God wanted him to do. Even people were telling him this was not necessarily a good thing. He wasn't listening to that. He was more listening to what God had in plan for him. So kind of what you know about Samson and John the Baptist and kind of what I just said, do you think that you can relate with either one of them?
Samson is one of those reasons why I didn't want to be an 8. He is that kind of worst version of that. We kind of celebrate him as a hero, but he's actually a terrible person. And it's just hard to get around how impulsive he is. He likes to be the one in charge. I don't really think of myself as a very vengeful person, but some of that is just because of disciplining myself over years. Oftentimes like with family or something, a little bit more of a comfortable setting, those kind of impulsive actions can come out.
I think with both these characters, it's interesting that they both, in a sense, become martyrs. I'd love that to be the end of the story of, I gave to the point of martyrdom. It's funny to me, too, though, that the 8s are the only one at the worst say they'll commit murder. And it's like, and it stems from that sense of control. And so the way Samson dies is through essentially committing murder and this idea of control. If I can't do anything, just let me do this one more time so I can stop these people, right? And that's the ultimate form of control. If I can't stop you from doing anything bad, then I'm going to kill you. And that sounds really harsh and direct, I know, but it is, in a sense, that ultimate form of control. So God, I've messed up. I get it. I'm not asking for my life, but at least let me stop these people.
Yeah, I think I can relate to that. I think, Samson, I think, does a lot of like pretty impulsive things. And sometimes they're cool and good and sometimes they're not. And I think that's like something that I can kind of relate to. But, he tries his best generally. A lot of times like kind of falls into pitfalls of, whatever it is, pride or lust and stuff like that. So
Yes, actually, you said it. It's more the John the Baptist he prepared the way for Jesus. And I feel I relate to that as far as being a part of support for the ministry that goes on here at Grace. I try to do it in a professional, kind way, but yes, if I really feel, and if I feel it's my place to step in, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
Because my mother was that way.
Oh, really? Okay.
But my mom is we're very much alike.
This is struck me recently. The idea of can infants have faith was John the Baptist sleeping in his mother's womb. And I think that physical aspect of like that heart that just loves the innocent and loves good and loves powerful and loves that, like, I think an 8's heart absolutely jumps at that part of who Christ is. The prophecy into the world, right? He was the first prophet that came after hundreds of years, but he was willing to say, no, this is who I am. Uncomfortable, give me a coat of camel's hair, that's fine. Like, whatever it is, it's less about creature comforts and more about going out and being a force in the world. And I think John definitely did that. So,
man, I like that. I do. I can't wait to use this the next time people go, oh, you're an 8? I'm going to be like, yeah, John the Baptist was too.
So there. So what's
So
up?
there,
I'm gonna
not,
do
to,
that.
not to drop the mic or anything, but that's a really cool. I love that. That like you just blew my mind. Yeah, that was really good because when you said John the Baptist, I'm like, oh, that's so not true. That John the Baptist is not an 8, but he was. I think the thing of it I love about reading the Bible, and it's when new ideas come into my head that I read the Bible in a different way. That's one of the things I love to help women do, is to look at God's word in a totally different way, and not to misinterpret the Bible, not to take
Right.
it out of context, none of that. But have you ever thought about John the Baptist being an 8? Like that blows my mind. And it's like,
Yes.
ooh, now I want to go back and read the
Whoa.
story with that thought of how God created him and look at it in that view. That's super cool.
Yeah.
I really like that.
And as far as John the Baptist goes, I don't know if I can relate to him a bunch, but I like his style, I guess, kind of being, like kind of countercultural in a way that kind of like draws people to him, and not like pushing people away. I feel like it's really easy to kind of try and be like, independent or like, not buy into worldly things, but do it in a way that really isolates yourself from other people. And I feel like he did a good job of not isolating himself. And I really did like that.
Yeah, so I guess the next question is, do you have any Bible verses that help you? Not just, it doesn't necessarily have to be what we talked about today, but it also could be about, just helps you in general.
Is Matthew 6:34, and that kind of helps me put things in perspective. Like if I'm worried about something that's not till December or in a few months from now, and so I try to think to myself, there's no sense in worrying about it today. Today has enough trouble of its own. Just get through this day, and the rest will work itself out.
It's a verse that I often quote quite a bit, and it's, "The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation." And I think that speaks to the hard and the soft as well. He is my strength. And again, 8s are big on strength. Are you strong enough for me? And so to know God is my strength, but also my song and that beauty. And so singing that song, whether it's a song of sorrow, a song of hope, a song of joy, a song of fear, whatever, like God is that for me. And in all of that, he's also my salvation and the one thing that will only ever preserve me. So that's one that has always kind of stuck in with me.
So 1 Peter 5:7, a lot of what I've had to learn is about giving to God and not thinking I can handle things on my own. Praying has been a tough discipline for me. Like, what good is it to bring this concern to God? I literally can't do anything about cancer, so I can't do a thing. We'll tap God for this one. Let's get God to figure this out for us. But then it's like, I have a presentation at work, or I'm going to go travel, or something like that. It's like, well, we kind of have control over this, so don't need to go to God about it. We just got to figure it out. We don't have to be the ones in control and figuring things out. We can just say, God, your will be done.
So to have one scripture, we could sit here and talk Bible all day, because it depends on what I need. Recently, he took me to Colossians. Doesn't matter your circumstances, doesn't matter what you're going through. He still wants you to have life to the fullest. So he wants us to continue to learn. He wants us to continue to live life to the fullest. And he wants us to love others by glorifying him and giving the gospel, the one thing that gives them life. If you read God's word as it being alive and real right now, you'll find a Bible verse every time you read it. And sometimes it's a challenging verse that the Lord says, okay, you're really messed up. You need to clean that up,
Yeah.
But that's me falling in love with him more because I'm sacrificing, I'm leaving something behind to grow closer to him.
I think like the more you grow closer to God, the more your natural inclinations and like, you know, desires and stuff will generally align with God's and who you were created to be, I guess, right? Since God created you. And so all that to say is I really like that verse from Proverbs. It's just like whatever you want to do, if you are truly like in God's spirit and in God's presence, then whatever you want to do, whatever decision you make will most likely be aligned with what God's will is for you. If you're, you know, obviously there's like flaws and stuff because we can't be truly connected or united with God. But I think in general, that's kind of how it works for me, or that's what I think.
So the second to last question is, how has God played a role or a major role in your life and struggles with some of these aspects we've talked about today?
Well, just because he's a constant presence, and it kind of guides me through every step of my days. I mean, I'm not, you know, that, I can go around sin because I'm going to be forgiven. But when I do sin and acknowledge that sin, and then it's very comforting to know that I am forgiven. And then it helps to prevent me from repeating that same sin. Just grateful that I have him in my life.
Pretty awesome.
And also have the opportunity to share his love with others.
When I'm here at camp, I will kind of reference, I'll say, see that tree? It's not trying to be a squirrel. It doesn't wish it was a squirrel. It's actually just going to do its best to be the healthiest tree it can be, the strongest, the straightest, the tree that's going to produce leaves season in, season out. It's not an aspect of shame or guilt that comes into play. It's an aspect of saying, wow, this is the Creator's hand at work. In that, once we begin to be able to not look at ourselves anymore, speaking that to other people. And being able to teach that and say, this is who you are. When people around you are striving to be healthier people, man, like that just, it's such a cool thing and something to celebrate with them. Huge thing is becoming who God has created us to be in our personalities, in our thought process, and how we handle emotions and how we live and exist in this world. I think is really huge.
Giving up control, I think, is a big part of that. Relinquishing control and relinquishing the idea that you have it all right. I'm a very future-focused kind of guy. I want to plan. I want to know the details. I want to know the next steps. But sometimes it's just like, well, that door opened, that door closed. I can only see 5 feet in front of me. Let's just deal with that right now. But ultimately, though self-preservation is not bad, we have a higher calling. There's something more for us, and that something more is in sacrificing ourselves for other people.
As a little girl, I believed, like, it was never a doubt to me that God existed. It was, I don't know, I just had this spiritual connection with God. I always did. I didn't understand it all. I didn't know it all, but there was a spiritual connection that a lot of other kids thought I was really weird for thinking that God was alive, like God is real. So I feel like God has been such a big part of my life that it is such a glue to who I am that he's played a part in every bit of it. I know that there are a lot of people that have taken on the Enneagram as their answer. Don't think that's a good balance, because Christ should be the answer and should be the epicenter, and everything that you deal with comes through that filter rather than God going through the Enneagram filter, or, you know, God going through, you know, the Myers-Briggs filter, or God going through. It's more of you putting those things through the God filters. And I'm not, honey, I am not perfect. I can be a very terrible 8 too, but I feel like everything I do, I filter through Christ. Even if I'm making a bad decision, or I'm using bad language at times, or whatever I'm doing wrong, I still filter it through God. That's why he laughs at me a lot, because I'm like, I know this is going to make you mad, Lord, but like, I don't like that person, or I don't, you know. So, those are the things. So I think the Enneagram has been it's opened up a new avenue of understanding how God's created me to be. Him being at the epicenter, but how that fits into who he created me to be.
One thing that I've thought about a lot recently is like the idea that just like I guess looking for guidance and decision making in life, especially from a Christian perspective. The closer that you like grow to God, I guess, the more you learn about him, then that means that closer you will be to him. And I think the closer you are to God, then the more you become closer to like your true self, if that makes sense, like the kind of person that you were created to be. And I don't think that necessarily makes the path obvious, like what to do obvious. But I think the more that you grow closer to God, the more that your own will and your own desires will align with God's will and desires. And the more your passions and skills and things that you love, I think will align with the kind of person that God created you to be, right?
Okay, so the last question is, what encouragement or advice would you say to someone who is also your number?
Keep on being that way because the world needs you.
To all those 8s out there, to just really work at listening well, listening to yourself, and when you find yourself trying to push or to control or to make something happen, take a breath. It's probably a good thing, but you want to do it in a way that celebrates people and honors people and honors yourself. And with that, don't try to be something else. 8s get a lot of flack for being an 8. So, you're just being an 8 right now. You're just trying to control the situation or things like that. And understanding like, yes, I am, but here's why is really huge, so that you can do that in a way that really becomes the powerhouse that God made you to be and wants you to be, and becomes a huge force in your church, in your family. But do it well and do it with obedience to Christ.
Well, just listen to everything I've already said, and
and you're good.
And you're good. Write that down on your mirrors when you wake up every morning. No, just kidding. You must decrease so that God increases. You got to let go. You got to recognize that some things are out of your control. And sometimes when things get out of control, that's exactly the moment where God needs us to be a light in the chaos, to speak into people's lives, to help. It's in those kind of topsy-turvy moments that so often God is really working. Those kinds of rhythms and that mundane can sometimes cause us to miss out on how our God, who is in control but is also wild and unpredictable in many cases, where God is moving and working. Christ empties himself, takes the form of a servant, and that's what we should be, of that same mind of Jesus. That's the whole goal. That's our whole mission. It's not to be the ones in charge who are protected and nobody can touch us. That's not our fate. In this world we will have trouble, as Jesus says. We can't think we're gonna be able to get rid of all of that.
Don't let people make you feel bad for being an 8. I think the best thing I would say to someone that is an 8 is I like to look at 8s as a warrior, not a warrior, like a warrior in the sense of you are blazing a path of glory for God. And you're not blazing the forest to burn it down. You're blazing a path for God, and that's to glorify him. Go do it. Don't let other people stop you. Don't let your thoughts of being demonstrative or overbearing or whatever. I mean, there's a balance to be godly and be righteous and even righteous anger at times. But to be who you are and who God's created you to be, just be who God's created you to be, in a healthy, loving, kind balance. Just being who God's created you to be, embracing who that is, because there's so much in my life that I've hated myself for being who I am. That's not what God created me this way for.
Yeah.
He created me this way to glorify him in the way that he's asking me to glorify him. And that's what I would encourage all eights to do, is be you and go and fight for justice and fight for others and do the right things and take control if you have to. That's
I'd say always take time to think about yourself. I think always take time for introspection and reflection. Think about like what's motivating you. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? Why do you want to do the things you want to do, or why do you not want to do the things you don't want to do? Or why is something making you angry, or why is something not sitting right with you? Because I think the more that you know yourself and the more you think about yourself and your own actions and motivations, I think it definitely helps a lot. Just being cognizant of what's driving you. And it helps you pick up on things that are unhealthy influences and helps you pick up on things that are working out for you. And I think just helps, it helps you approach life in general, but relationships with other people, your relationship with God, and how you, and also just like your own personal health and how you treat yourself. I think it really benefits from that.
Oh my gosh, you made it to the end of the video. That is amazing. Good job. I am so glad that you got to watch, that you got to listen and hear people's stories. I really do hope that it has encouraged you, inspired you, and you can check out all the other episodes. There are links in the description below if you want to check those out. And have a great day. And I hope that you're reminded through all this craziness in this life that you are not alone. Yeah, you said it before I did. That's right. Okay. Well, you have a great day and hope to see you soon. God bless.